So good morning and welcome everybody. I am Bruce Weir. Today is May the 1st, 2020. We're living in unprecedented times, and as a result, this meeting is being conducted via video conferencing. Each of our members is joining us from their own location. Before we begin, I would like to thank you all for your continued service to New York State, as our work here is important for the continuity of the criminal justice services. And I, of course, should also thank the staff from the New York State Commission for putting this together. We will be using a roll call to conduct our business this morning to ensure that everybody's votes will be accurately recorded. So at this time, I'm going to ask each member to state their name and reply present as we take attendance to establish a quorum. Take your time with this so that the webcam can switch to your location. This will be a slow process, but it's important that we are all able to see each other when taking attendance and taking votes. So as I said, I'm Bruce Weir. Dr. Beaver.
I don't think Dr. Beaver was able to join us.
Oh, he wasn't. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Eastman.
Here, present.
Thank you. Dr. Gettings.
I'm here, present.
Thank you. There we go. There we go.
Okay.
Dr. Kidd. Dr. Kidd.
He's muted. Hold on. There we go.
Dr. Kidd, I don't hear you. Are you unmuted?
There, I'm unmuted, I think.
Yes.
You hear me?
Yes, we see you too. Thank you, Ken.
And present.
Dr. Smith.
I'm here.
All right, and we'll just give the video a moment to switch over.
I don't think you can see me. It's still circling on.
Okay, anyway, we certainly hear you and we see your initials on the screen, so thank you. And Dr. Souza.
Amanda Souza is present.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you. Good to see you. So I think we have established a quorum, all members except Dr. Beaver. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Well, let's proceed to have a vote on the agenda. So you've all received the draft agenda for today's meeting. If there's any discussion on this agenda, any comments or suggestions? I don't hear any, so do I have a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting? Someone will so move.
I move.
Amanda Souza, I make a motion.
All right, Dr. Souza has moved that we adopt the agenda, and do we have a seconder?
Allison Eastman, seconded.
Dr. Eastman has seconded, thank you. So this will be a practice for us. I'm going to now call upon you to vote, and at this point, state your name so that the webcam can change to your location, and then vote aye or nay. My vote is aye. Dr. Beaver is not present. Dr. Eastman.
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Gettings.
Aye.
Dr. Kidd.
Aye.
Dr. Smith.
Aye.
And Dr. Souza.
Amanda Souza, aye.
Thank you. Jill, was that fine? Did you get to see people when you needed to? Certainly we heard everybody.
That was perfect. Thank you. Yep, we were able to record everyone's votes appropriately.
Good. So I think we're doing well. It's a good omen. So now we'll move to review and approve the draft minutes from
Dr. Weir?
Yes.
Dr. Weir?
Yes.
Just make a note that there are no nays and the motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, there were no nays and the motion carried. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. So we'll move to approve the minutes from the previous meeting on February the 7th. You've seen the minutes. Is there any discussion regarding these minutes? I think I had one question. We had a little discussion about having some guests come and talk to us about genealogy searching. That is still an action item, I take it, Jill, for the staff.
Yes, that's still an action item. I did not reach out to anyone at the time, given the
Sure.
happened, but we will have that. It's on our notes for the August meeting.
Very good, thank you. So I think the minutes certainly seemed accurate to me. So do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the February 7th, 2020 meeting?
This is Dr. Getting, so moved.
Dr. Gettings moved it, thank you. And do we have a seconder for that?
And Kidd, second.
Dr. Kidd has seconded. Further discussion? So I'm going to again call upon you for your vote. At this point, remember, we did very well last time. State your name so that we can switch over to have a look at you and then vote aye or nay. My vote is aye. Dr. Eastman.
Eastman, aye.
Thank you. Dr. Gettings.
Catherine Gettings, aye.
Thank you. Dr. Kidd.
Kidd, aye.
Thank you. Dr. Smith.
Jennifer Smith, aye.
Thank you. And Dr. Souza.
Amanda Sozer, aye.
Thank you. So we had 6 aye votes, no nay votes, so the motion carries, so the minutes are approved. Thank you. We're doing very well. So now we'll proceed to the business. We have some updates. First of all, from the Nassau County Division of Forensic Science, the continuation of accreditation with attached documentation. This was for informational purposes. No vote is required. The laboratory had its off-site review in October 2019. There were no findings, and the lab remains in compliance with its accreditation standards. Thank you. Moving on, accreditation for Suffolk County Crime Laboratory. There was an email chain dated March 31, 2020, and concerning some retirement notifications and an acknowledgement for that. The Assistant Chief, Daniel Burns, retired effective Friday, March 27th, 2020, excuse me. Donald Dollar has been named Acting Assistant Chief. ANAB has acknowledged receipt of this notification. So that's the for informational purposes from Suffolk County. Thank you. Westchester County, there's an email chain from February 10th regarding the resubmission of Appendix C. Informational purposes only, no vote is required. As requested by the DNA subcommittee at its February meeting, the laboratory has provided updated internal QAS Appendix C documents. So those are duly noted and you've seen those. Very good. So moving to old business, we have a series of updates from Dr. Dooley, and you've got copies of, well, you've got just a placeholder for these. So Dr. Dooley is going to give us some verbal updates. So first of all, on the partial match program.
Yes, good morning, everyone. There are no updates since our last meeting. We still remain with 93 names that have been requested, 49 released. And of those 49, 47 investigations closed with 2 convictions and 2 active investigations still. So that is our partial match update. Again, nothing has changed since the last meeting.
Thank you. The familial search update, can you give us an update on that, please?
Yes, so we have 37 applications in total. There's 1 in process, 12 have been rejected, 22 approved. Of those 22, 11 searches have been completed and 11 searches are in queue, 1 of which is the 1 in process, and 2 have been withdrawn at this time.
Thank you. That's very interesting. So, and then finally, for the Codis bulletins, any update from Estes about the Codis bulletins? Jill, you going to do that, or is Estes going to report on that update?
So I believe Tom Leach is on the phone, hopefully able to unmute himself. We've been texting, so I'm hopeful that this is working. Tom, can you hear us?
You are muted, Tom.
Okay, so Tom, if you could try *6. You're not muted. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
now we can
thank
hear
you.
you. Perfect.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tom Leach, I'm Associate Director of Biological Sciences up at the New York State Police Forensic Investigation Center. Happy to provide an update on the Codis bulletins. This would be in regards to the QAS documents. Before I continue, can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Yes.
Okay. As most of you know, the QAS documents were revised substantially, and they're slated to become effective on July 1st of this year. FBI has indicated that that is still going to continue, and that those documents for both the forensic lab and the convicted offender lab will still be effective. However, the FBI is providing some relief as a result of the national emergency due to the Codis, the COVID-19 pandemic. And basically what they're doing is providing some options to all the ENDIS participating laboratories to be able to accommodate for any challenges that they are facing during these, during these times, and preparing for the new effective dates of these documents. As part of that, as part of the options that they are offering is they're providing guidance, more guidance on specified QAS requirements to assist with interpretation and just review of those documents. And then also they are providing some extension of time to satisfy certain standards within the QAS document. And then they're also going to provide some exemptions for certain QAS requirements for the calendar year of 2020. However, that would have to be supported with appropriate documentation in order to comply with that. So what the FBI and the QAS have asked through the bulletin is that if ENDIS participating laboratories, Codis laboratories in New York State, need to do some of these options, or that they would need to have their director contact the ENDIS custodian and let them know what exactly you want to do, and there's instructions for that. So just wanted to relay that information.
Thank you. That was it, Tom. Thank you. Was it? But anything else, Tom? Sorry.
That was it. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from anybody? Any of the members? Thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
So moving on, the QAS Appendix A response. So at our February meeting, we had a discussion regarding the proper way to complete Appendix A of the QAS audit document. Letters were sent to all the New York State labs explaining that they must not leave Appendix A blank. A letter was also sent to the SWGDAM requesting they consider issuing a similar guidance. And we've received a response from the SWGDAM chair, and you all have that response. Any comments from the members on that item?
I've completed the QAS 2020 training, and the audit document cover sheet, it's great. It has a check off whether there were any findings, a click box or whatever, and it also has a spot where you indicate whether it is an external or an internal audit. So I think that pretty much covers the issue.
So that addresses the question that the concern that we had. So that's good to know that that's there. Thank you, Alison. That's great. Any other comments? Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to something else on the partial match and familial search policy. review and some changes in the documents. So in your materials, you received a track change version of the partial match and familial search policies and the corresponding changes to the New York State regulations and implementation plan. My understanding that we'll be reviewing and discussing these changes now. After this discussion, we'll take a vote to send a recommendation to the Commission on Forensic Science regarding these documents. I suggest we start with the policy changes. Once we come to an agreement, the corresponding changes to the other documents can be made. So, Jill, I think we would like you to walk us through. So I think it's premature for us to approve the changes, so we should move to the discussion section. So I don't think you need to go through word by word, but if you would just guide us through this, if any members have questions as we proceed, then we could take those up. That's be the appropriate procedure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I know there's a bit of an echo for some reason.
You think you're good.
Okay. So what I wanted to start with, we'll start with partial match policy and the changes that are there. What's reflected in the track changes are the two items that we had spoken about in our last meeting. The first one was to remove that attachment that had all of the formula and definitions and work the definitions of EMR and EKR into the policy. So we've done that. And the second one was to remove the subject to review every 2 years. We've removed that statement because, just as we stated, if there comes a time when we need to discuss it and review it, we can do that at any time. There's no need to put the 2-year mark on that. And by law, we are required to do so every 5 years anyway. So for partial match, those are the two things that we discussed, and those should be reflected on the track changes form.
So does that mean, thank you, Jill, does that mean that every 5 years we'll be asked to look at these again? Is that what that meant with the 5-year review instead of 2?
Natasha can chime in here too, sorry.
Thank you.
It's Natasha. Well, what happens is every time you adopt regs, your 5-year or your 3-year is going to change. So when we do these new regs, it's going to be 3 or 5 years from when we adopt these regs. So it's going to change. So that's why we said take out the 2 years, because you might as well just review it when you feel needed. And it may be 3 or 5 years. It may be whenever you feel it's sufficient to review them. So that's why their 2-year review is being taken out.
Yeah, thank you. I was just a bit unsure. So what will happen? Will there be some trigger after 3 or 5 years? Or should we remember, or the staff remember we should be looking at these things? The
staff will be keeping track of it, or staff or I will be keeping track.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. So those were the two changes, Jill. Largely moving material definitions from the appendix into the text of the document, and then that one. So, any comments or questions for Dr. Dooley on the partial match policies from our members? Give you a minute.
I have a question on the first page. I just got confused of what was calculated by it, but I figured it out. I assume it's EKR.
You wonder what the word it refers.
On page 1 of the partial match policy.
Yes. So what was your question exactly?
Well, I didn't know what it was referring to, but I guess I figured it out today. It's expected kinship ratio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kinship ratio for the 4 major ethnic groups.
Yeah.
The FBI allele frequency databases or equivalent likelihood ratio approved by the state DNA subcommittee was calculated by it and at least one of the 4 database values, or EMR or EKR. So it is EKR.
No. The expected ratio was calculated by I assume that's a forensic agency who actually does the calculations. Or does it mean calculated by the formula? I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. And Jill, do you have, or Natasha, any clarity there? I must say, I just read right through it. The EMR or EKR, as approved, this is a requirement for the partial match or familial search. These statistics have to be calculated by it. I imagine that's the requesting agency, surely. We must go back. This is all talk. Yeah, this is the Codis lab initiating the request, and they confirmed that. I think it's clear, Alison. It is the requesting lab.
This is Mandy Silver. I'm wondering if we could just say was calculated, and at least one of the 4 database values is greater, and just take out by it.
Well, I'm wondering if the it is referring to the and or, so then it can, it would change the EMR, EKR was calculated by it, meaning whichever one you selected or both, and at least one of the 4 database values for the EMR or EKR is greater than or equal to 1.
That's what I kind of figured that must be what it is. Can't we just spell it out?
Yeah,
Yes,
so I think so. I would have had the opposite interpretation. So there's
clearly an ambiguous referent.
Yes. Yes, I think so. Can we suggest the wording change? I like omitting the words by it.
Calculated.
Yes, was calculated, and by implication, I think that would be reported in the request by the lab.
Okay, I've made a note of that for
Yeah,
that adjustment.
Thank you. Good spot, Alison. Thank you. All right. So those are the definitions. That was on page 1 of the document. I'm just scrolling down page 2. Got the time, 2 years removed. That's all fine. The attachment A is no longer needed on page 3 because that's now in the text. And then that finishes the partial match, I believe. Thank you. Any further comments on the partial match? All right. So, Jill, would you take us to the familial search policy, please?
Absolutely. So for familial search, the same. We discussed 2 major changes during our last meeting. The first was the addition of unidentified human remains for them to be added to the familial search policy. So throughout the document, you'll notice that we have incorporated language that would allow us to work in the unidentified human remains. We also made a change to the the profile, what requirements for the profile based on the unidentified human remains. Again, that's because of that. And we changed the language under the requesting a familial DNA search to reflect the application process is now more streamlined. We've removed that memorandum of understanding, and that language will now be incorporated into the application process. So other than some grammatical things throughout that to kind of get that to flow in and get the UHR within the policy, those are the changes that were made. Thank you.
I had a couple of little questions on page 31. This reference to the DNA subcommittee threshold. So which is appropriate. And the last time this committee approved the threshold was May 19th, 2017. Is there any thought that that threshold has to be updated or at least looked at?
If the threshold were to be adjusted, that would require a validation on the state police's behalf. So that would be something that they would come and present in front of the DNA subcommittee, and then that would be updated accordingly if you decided that it was an appropriate change or not.
So that's an action that starts with the state police. For whatever reason they believe thresholds should be changed. I assume
that would be part of their efforts.
Thank you. All righty. Then on the next page, on section 4A3, I'm getting confused by all the different words to describe samples. This is on our page 32. I think it's clear. So we hear about candidate samples, forensic samples, remain samples. I think I wasn't clear what the candidate sample was. I can see searching a database would identify a profile for a potential source of the, I don't know what a candidate sample is. Excuse me, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, so this is language that in conjunction with the state police, we worked to make consistent throughout the document, denoting that the candidate sample versus profile, we've delineated the two of them. I believe this was an effort with their council and our council combining that. So I'm not sure if either state police or Natasha want to speak up to that, but
yeah.
When we
so
talk about
if you could help me just explain what a candidate sample is.
I'll defer to state police if council's on.
I don't think that they're on, but I can explain it in
I
the.
don't think it's a major issue. I mean, you've been.
Excuse me. Good morning.
Yes, please. Thank you. So who is speaking? Who is speaking?
Again, this is Tom Leach from up at the New York State Police Forensic Investigation Center. I'm not aware if counsel's office is on, but if you could just direct me to where you are referring to.
I'm looking. Yeah, thank you. It's the top of page. I don't know what the document page is. Maybe page 4. Is it?
So Tom, I can walk you through. So from what you would have gotten, it would be under familial search policy number 4.
Yes.
And then it would be A3 is where it would begin. And it's perform YSTR testing on a candidate sample if the forensic DNA profile or unidentified human remains DNA profile is from a male individual. And so I think what we're just delineating is that, if it's a convicted offender candidate sample, their DNA profile. So we're trying to make a difference between the sample versus the actual profile.
Yeah.
So when it's referring to the candidate sample, it's saying perform YSDR analysis on the candidate sample if the forensic DNA profile or an identified human remain profile is from a male.
Yeah.
So as you know, with the familial search, when we do the search itself, we will generate a candidate list, and those are the candidate samples. And those samples that are on there, if they're a male sample, then we're going to go ahead and do Y testing on those candidate samples that are on that list.
Okay, so I think so. Okay, so that helps. Thanks, Tom. So it is indeed, it's more testing, going back to the original DNA that you have for that.
It's a testing that occurs after the search, and there's a candidate list generated, and then we're going to do additional testing on those samples.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And Dr. Weir, if I could just draw your attention to 4A2, it says evaluate the candidate list based on, and so that's where the word candidate comes from. It's that candidate list. It's a result.
Yeah. Thank you. I got confused. I understood candidate, but I was confused between profile for that candidate, and the actual DNA, which I now understand requires further testing generally if there's to be Y testing. Thank you, that helps. And then my other little question on the next page, section 5C, there's a statement about the requesting agency, the requestors have completed and demonstrated an understanding of the training so that they know what it is they're doing. So that requirement's been removed. Is that because the appropriate agency people have all, in fact, all been trained and they understand it? So after the requesters have completed and demonstrated an understanding of the training, that's now been struck out.
Yes, we
I think it's placed someplace else.
sorry, go ahead, Natasha.
Oh, go ahead, Bill. No, I was saying, I think it's, I can't see right now. I'm shut out of my computer again. I think it's been placed someplace else.
Oh. I don't recall that it was, but maybe it is. I don't recall seeing it anywhere else. That's why I noticed it. But if it's there, then that's fine. Could you just maybe, instead of taking time now, could you just check, Natasha or Jill, that the requirement is there, or if you think there's reason to remove it, if you could state what that reason is now.
So I think why we removed it was during the training, actually establishing parameters on how they've an understanding of the training is done during the training. That's part of the process. We've also modified the website so that there is a lot of information on the front end about the process, more so than we've had before, to help familiarize folks with the familial search process and how that works, why you would use it, what samples are eligible, and how you would go about applying. And then during the testing or the training, we go through what it means to get results or not get results, and then give them examples of if you were given. So we do some talk through, some scenario talk through.
Okay.
We thought that was reflected within the training.
Okay. And that website you referred to, that's publicly available, or is that an internal website?
No, that's publicly available on the DCJS website.
Okay, thank you. All right. So thank you. And then just finally, at the very bottom of our page 36, there's just a note for the appropriate statute current through December 31, 2019. Has that been updated, or is that part of what we're doing now, updating that?
That's part of what we're doing now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to be so picky. So that's nice work. Thank you. Any questions from the members about these revisions?
Yes, this is Ken. Under item 1A, case requirements requiring it be associated with penal law, etc. That seems to eliminate the human remains. Later on, it does say the remains must be associated with issues in 1A, but there's an element of confusion, at least in my mind, whether any human remains must be associated with a crime before they're being investigated, since it seems the investigation might be the information that would then associate it with a crime. I'm slightly confused.
So point to exactly where the confusion is, Ken. If you wouldn't mind, just can you give us our page number, the one in red, please?
I'm on page 30.
Thank you.
Actually 29.
Okay.
Case requirements, and then item A, and then the next page.
So you see that the word forensic, so the word forensic has been now struck. So now the DNA profile might be forensic or remains. Right.
That's presumably it, but it would seem to exclude it. And then under.
So it should have also have been excluded at the top of page 30. Is that what you're saying? If the word forensic has been removed on page 29, but it remains in top of page 30. Is that the essence?
No, not quite.
Okay, sorry. I'll be quiet.
Item B.
Yes.
Under 2, so it's on page 30.
Yeah.
Seems to be in conflict with item 1A, but it refers back and says the human remains.
If I can just chime in here, Dr. Kidd.
Please.
So the striking of forensic DNA profile achieves the inclusion of the forensic samples as well as the unidentified human remains profiles, I should say. So by striking that, we're just saying the DNA profile, whether it's forensic or it's unidentified human remains, must be associated with the following, because those are still the criteria for the case requirements in order to be met for eligibility for familial search.
Okay, fine.
Makes sense? Is that good?
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. That was good. Any other questions from members about these revisions?
I just have a question again. What page is it? On page 29, the
Yes.
paragraph just before number 1. The statement, nothing in this policy shall preclude an investigating police agency and the appropriate prosecutor from requesting a familial search of an unidentified profile meeting the criteria set forth in this policy is associated with a case in which a defendant has previously been convicted. Long sentence. Is that the same as you can request a familial search on a profile from open and adjudicated cases? Is that what this is saying?
I believe so, that it gives the defendant the right to request a familial search.
Is there an easier way of saying this?
Evidently back in 2016 or 17, that was 2017, that was how they felt it was best represented. I don't know. But just to highlight one major thing on that, we did strike out district attorney and put prosecutor in there. That's something that in the event that something came up with the district attorney's office and someone else needed to prosecute it, we wanted it to be appropriate prosecutor. So
I think a lot of I'm the KISS philosophy, and a lot of the wording is more of the legal style of writing.
Allison, you are very perceptive. I'm being told that this statement was crafted specifically by the defense bar representative who was involved with developing the policy.
Ah, I see. Okay, now I know what that means anyway.
All right. So you
have to be careful with convicted and adjudicated. They're two different things.
Well, I guess you have to reopen the case if they're going to do a familiar search that makes the case reopened.
Was that a question for some?
Yeah. I don't know if there anybody. Natasha?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I guess if it's a defendant has been previously convicted and is requesting a familial search, then is the case considered reopened?
It's not the defendant requesting the search, it's the prosecutor.
Well, the defendant must be making a request to a prosecutor, or a prosecutor. I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out scenarios for this statement.
I think it gives them
Stick with
the
it.
ability to request a familial search from a prosecutor and law enforcement agency on behalf of the defendant who feels they may have been wrongly convicted. If I'm remembering how things were generated when this was first crafted, you know, they wanted to be sure that the defense community had the ability to also request a familial search. So, you know, the requirement is that the defendant has been previously convicted. Again, Natasha points out there's a difference between whether it's been adjudicated versus a conviction.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I get it. All right. I understand now.
All right, thank you.
This is Mandy Sozer. If I just wanted to look at the definition of unidentified human remains, DNA profile, on page 49.
Sorry, Mandy, I'm scrolling.
Yeah, no, it's just a little bit unusual, and I could see maybe that you just wanted to group everything together on those two. I just wanted to look at that for a second.
And this is new. It's in blue.
Yeah, it's blue.
Yes, this is new under the definitions of the implementation plan. There was no definition, so we wanted to be sure that we listed one under the definitions. Is there a problem with the specific definition?
Yeah, I just thought it was or from an individual who cannot or will not identify themselves. So we're talking about unidentified human remains. Typically refers to someone that's deceased. So I was just looking at that.
Is it the tense that's the problem? Would it be could not or would not?
It's the word. It's the word remains.
Right, but if someone came into the hospital with massive injuries, wouldn't identify themselves, and then they died, they become unidentified human remains.
But before they die.
So are we doing this testing before they die?
Well, there could be. I can imagine situations where it would be nice to search on a sample. It may well be from a living person, but it's certainly irrelevant to have a search. The person, we don't know whose sample, who the contributor of that sample is. There might be a suspicion it was a person who refuses to confirm that.
Or someone.
I don't have a problem with it. It was just a little unusual. If because usually unidentified human remains typically means body parts from a deceased individual. But adding this in, I just wanted to point it out. But I could definitely see where if someone was coming into a hospital and they couldn't identify who they were, that this could be a very helpful tool. Especially, I guess, if it was in conjunction with some crime, let's say someone was kidnapped and they were trying to identify them. So I don't have any problem with it. I just wanted to make sure that we saw that.
It seems like just a convenient way to stress this. So the definition allows both from living and deceased people, and there's just been lumped for convenience under the identified remains. I think it's fine. It'd be very cumbersome to change the.
Oh no, it would be hard. I agree, but I just wanted to point that out.
Sure. Thank you.
I just want to say I cannot remember. Will request my staff or maybe state police to chime in during our efforts of editing these documents, as we took this definition specifically from somewhere.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm not sure. I have canvassed here. I'm waiting to see if I can get a response from anyone, or if anyone wants to chime in and say, I'm almost certain we took this word for word from somewhere, because we don't like to reinvent the wheel when it comes to terms like this.
I'm checking right now. I think it came from the let me see, hold on. I think it came
from the regs.
Seeing it. Right, I know, because I questioned it too, and I said, okay. But it came from the regs, so I said it was already, reviewed and adopted. Yes, it came from the regs.
Okay, so there you go. So this is the definition that we already have in policy in our New York State regs. So we just copy and pasted that so that there would be consistency between the regs and the implementation.
That's fine. That's fine.
Thank you.
I think it's a very, probably could be a very important use.
Oh, I think it's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Good morning. If I could interrupt.
Yes, please. Who's speaking? Is this Tom again?
Tom Leach again, up from the State Codis Lab.
Thanks, Tom.
So I don't want to get into too much detail because I don't want to misspeak, but the language that is discussed in there is also in line with the ENDIS guidelines for UHR.
Correct. And you know what, Tom, I remember, I believe we had this conversation so that we're actually taking from the national definition, and we've tried to incorporate that into our state regs as well as the implementation plan for consistency.
So, Tom, thanks for that. So do you find that this is helpful? Do you find situations where there's a need to conduct a search from a potentially living person?
Dr. Ware, was that to me?
Yes. Sorry, Tom. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for the clarification and just the curiosity and our interest. So, do you find this helpful? Do you often have the situation where you want to do a search from a potentially living person?
Yeah. From a living person, I guess I'm not sure of that answer, but however, we do have a number of labs that are actually hoping for this revision because there are situations where they want to submit applications related to UHR.
So that's not quite the question. So the definition allows the sample, I'll just call it the sample, to be from an individual who cannot or will not identify themselves, suggesting that person is still living. And we could anticipate that would be of interest. And I was just asking if that is in fact of interest to you. Does it happen?
I guess
if I can, I'll chime in here real quick. So what we can say is based on the applications we've received thus far, we haven't run into a situation where there has been a person who cannot or will not identify themselves. There have been applications we've rejected because we were not able to do unidentified human remains. So again, just taking that definition from the ENDIS guidelines and working that in, we're really not quite sure what we'll see in terms of applications now that we have the ability to accept these. So I think it'll still be on a we'll kind of see basis.
It seems like a very sensible policy, I think. Thank you.
Can I just also interject that with the UHR definition, as Dr. Sozer had pointed out, if I direct your attention to, I guess, in the familial search policy under sample or number 2, sample requirements, B, and then Roman numeral 2. The sample requirements there say for unidentified human remains, DNA profile must have been developed from an individual whose identity is unknown and whose death is suspected to involve the commission of a crime enumerated in Section 1A. So for the sample requirements themselves, unless I'm reading that wrong, I believe that's indicating that there's a death is suspected there. So.
Well, but I think the phrase "who will not identify themselves" occurs more than once in the document, and I think we're applauding the inclusion of that phrase.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Any other questions about these reasons?
This is Mandy again. I just want to follow up. Do we want to take out the word death on page 30?
That's
whose identity is unknown and who is suspected to be involved in, not in the commission, but and who is, because I would think that might be a victim too. So do we want to take out that word death?
Or should it be an and or?
Yes, maybe.
I agree. It's Natasha. I agree something. Otherwise, it is kind of inconsistent. It's conflicting.
Yes, I agree. It's conflicting.
Mandy, could you just point us to exactly where you're looking, please?
It's on page 30.
Yeah.
And it may be in another spot. It may be on page 39, because I know some of these things are repeated or similar. So it is B.
Okay.
Number B, or letter B, number 2.
Oh, okay.
The word death there implies that it's post-mortem. But I think the definition of the unidentified human remains is both before death and after death. So I'm wondering if we should take that death out. So based on this, just to be consistent with the definition.
Yeah.
So what you're suggesting is perhaps striking whose death, and then it would be have been developed from an individual whose identity is known and is suspected to involve the commission of a crime enumerated in section 1A. So if we were to strike whose death.
Yeah, and I would then, let me just look at page 39 real quick, because I think it may be there too. That was a really good point. It was brought up by state police. Yes, so it's on page 40. Little Roman numeral 2, number 4, Roman numeral 2.
Got it. Again, striking whose death.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, that sounds good. Yes.
All right, I've written these down. We'll, I don't want to put state police on the spot, and in terms of council, we want to make sure that this is acceptable.
Sure.
So we'll evaluate these, but I have written down the 3 adjustments that we'd like to make, or you have stated that you want to make in the familial. Well, the first one was in the familial policy, and these 2 are in the implementation plan. And we'll make sure that that language is repeated correctly if that strikeout is made.
Thank you. All right.
Jill, this is Catherine. I just had a couple of typo type things.
Please, yes, I hate them. I hate them.
Well, there's one place where the word inshore was changed to enshore, but there are 2 other instances of the word inshore that should be changed to enshore. So if you just search for that word.
Word search on that. Thanks.
And something else, Catherine?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Then I'm pretty proud. Thank you. That's not too bad then.
Very good. All right, last call for further discussion. This was very, very helpful. Nice work, as I said. So we've discussed it. So now, do I have a motion to approve the changes discussed today to the partial match and familial search policies? That's 9 NYCRR section 6192.1 and 6192.3, and the New York State DNA Databank implementation plan, and send the recommended revisions to the New York State Commission on Forensic Science. Do I have a motion to for that?
I'd like to raise a question because, as Jill just said, she was going to make sure that the changes we just recommended are acceptable. Is it clear that exactly what we will be voting on?
So if I could just chime in and say that I've made a note of the things that we've talked about, and this motion is basically to get the draft document to the commission to have their discussion about it. It will then come back to you again in August with any changes that they may have seen, and that will be the official voting. Again, I don't want to misspeak, so legal chime in or anyone else chime in if they've understood this differently, but this is just so that the track changes forms that we have so far and incorporating the ones that we've discussed will then move up to the commission so that they can incorporate any changes they see, and then we'll kick it back to you all in August for the official vote.
That's fine.
Hi, it's Natasha. I'm sorry. For the commission, for it to go to the commission, you would have to, you're voting on all the track changes, including the ones from today, for it to go to the commission to have discussion. So if you're not voting on everything, then only the ones that you approve will be going to the commission. So be aware of that.
And that's not quite clear, Natasha. So the commission does not see this whole document?
Well, you're voting to approve changes to submit to the commission. If you're not voting on the new changes, you're not approving them to go to the commission. So they're not going to be going there. If that makes sense.
I'm a little dense this morning. So the things that Jill's going to look into following our discussion.
They'll be going to the commission, but they're not going to be approved. They're not approved by you. I mean.
Okay, this is not a binding recommendation to the commission.
Right.
This is
No,
just,
only the ones that you're approving right now would be going as the binding. Everything else, just so you're aware of it.
But the commission will see them, however.
Yes, they can,
no.
them and discuss it, but it definitely won't be finalized. It would definitely have to come back.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think, yeah.
If they, if the approved changes go to the commission and they're fine with it, then the regs are going. They're approved, and the regs will be going without the additional changes, unless the commission says, let's send everything back. I mean, I don't know how.
Right. So what we've worded here is that we're just sending a recommendation for the revisions. So we're not actually performing a binding recommendation until our August meeting. So I think we're just recommending that the edits as they stand, and I'll incorporate these other ones, which then would come back and they would be able to view those again in August for the binding recommendation. I thought that is how the process has worked in the past. So it's not a binding recommendation to go to them. It's just a recommendation that they can view them, and they can have their input in, and then again, they would be able to reevaluate what the commission has implemented, and if they have any input, and then make a binding recommendation in August.
Okay, and just make sure that it's noted when you do the motion that this is exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Dr. Kidd, is there any way you could make a motion that includes some of that process? So let me see if I can help. So we are voting to send this document to the commission
as a working draft for their discussion.
Yes, and on the understanding that we'll see it for a final approval from this committee next meeting. I think that's important.
Yes.
I think it's important for the process. I've got. I think Dr. Dooley's captured the intention of our suggestions. So we have a. Let me see if I can put words in your mouth, Dr. Kidd. We are going to vote on sending this document to the commission with our general recommendations, on the understanding that we will then see the final version in August.
Fine.
And do I have a seconder for that motion?
I second it. Allison.
Thank you, Dr. Eastman. All right, further discussion? So,
excuse me, good morning.
Yes, please.
Again, this is Tom Leach.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to interject as well. I think it's a good idea how you're proceeding in regards to waiting till August. I think myself anyways, and the administration here and the council's office just want to take a look at the discussions regarding UHR from if we were going to process a UHR and it was from a living person. Just take a look at that, make sure there's no issues with that.
Thank you, Tom. That's very helpful. And I think that's clear that I think we are pleased with these revisions. We had a couple of suggestions. The document, once we've voted, will proceed to the commission, and then we'll see the final version and all.
Thank you.
So please vote aye or nay when I call your name, so your vote can be recorded. My vote is aye. Dr. Eastman.
Allison Eastman, aye.
Dr. Gittings.
Catherine Gettings, aye.
Dr. Kidd.
Ken Kidd, aye.
Dr. Smith.
Jennifer Smith, aye.
And Dr. Souza.
Amanda Sozer, aye.
So there were 6 aye votes, no nay votes, so the motion carries. Thank you. Now that was I think that was very productive and helpful discussion. So moving to new business, Dr. Dooley, can you give us an update regarding the 2019 Codis audit memo, please?
Absolutely. Let me just scroll to the page. So annually, this past year, my staff did a document review or audit on all of the DNA labs in the state in order that to see if they were in compliance with the regs. I'm just trying to scroll to my memo. I'm so sorry.
This is page 67.
67, got it. I'm right there. So again, just in accordance with section 6192.6 of the New York codes, all of the DNA, public forensic DNA laboratories in the state were found to be in compliance. There were no findings or areas of concern that were discovered during the audit cycle. And excuse me, so we have evaluated all of the labs and found they're in compliance with no recommendations. They did a great job, and we appreciate them working with us in our office in the document submission for this.
Thank you. All right, so thank you for that.
Sorry, Jill, can I ask a question? In the memo, it says the last sentence is attached for your convenience as a template of the audit checklist, but I don't see the template. Was it meant to be in these documents that we received, or is it somewhere else?
So that was an oversight. It was not included in the binder, and we can email you a copy of that template.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. All righty, so moving now to the laboratory disclosures, Nassau County Division of Forensic Science. So there's a report, a template issue, an email chain of March 10th regarding the closure of non-conformance and attached documentation and instrument injection time memo dated March 14th, 2020 regarding the initial notification of non-conformance. So this is for informational purposes, no vote is required. This is the close of a 2019 non-conformance involving a report template error. The template has been corrected and cases that needed amended reports were addressed. The second non-conformance is initial notification of an instrument injection time was found to be different from the injection time in the protocol. The lab is investigating the non-conformance to determine a root cause and corrective action. Dr. Dooley, do we have anything? I don't think we have a role here, just this is for our information. Is that correct?
Correct, it's for informational purposes. It's the closeout of a non-conformance. If there are any questions, I believe we may have a representative from Nassau County is on the line, maybe Karen or Pat, if they could speak up. If you have any questions, you can.
So members, are there any questions on these issues?
I have a question regarding the instrument protocol issue. Is this is a new issue, correct?
Correct. The second nonconformance is just an initial notification. I'm sorry, I misread that. So the first one is a closeout. The second one is an initial notification. So they're performing their investigation currently to determine the root cause. So that will follow as they progress with the determination of the root cause and corrective action that will be presented at the next meeting, I would assume, pending how their root cause analysis goes.
Is there anybody from the lab on the phone now that maybe could give us a little update, because this happened on Valentine's Day, I guess, and It's been this.
So I'm going to ask Nassau County, it's either Karen or Pat is on the line. If you could press *6, we believe that will unmute you because we've done a mute all kind of for the call. Try *6 and then see if we can hear you.
Maybe not.
Maybe not, yeah.
But in any case, Jill, we will hear something in our next meeting anyway on this issue, I take it.
Yes, because it is an initial
Yeah.
notification.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. So is there any other items members wish to bring up at this point? We're at the end of the agenda. Hearing none, so we should proceed to discuss our next meeting date and location. I'm nervous about discussing the location, hopeful, I guess. So we are scheduled to meet on August the 14th, 2020, scheduled to be in New York City. And I think it'd be prudent to say that we cannot know at this point. We certainly applaud the efforts of the staff to bring us together today, and I, for one, have been delighted at how well it's worked. So congratulations to everybody. I think we did well.
Thank you, the technology gods.
Yes, I would certainly be disappointed for us not to meet in person. That this is beyond our control. So at least we know there's an option. So the next meeting is to be held for the Subcommittee to be held August 14th, 2020 in New York City. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Catherine Gettings, so moved.
Dr. Gettings, thank you.
Kidd, second.
And Dr. Kidd, second. Thank you. So once again, I'll call upon you for your vote. State your name so we can look at you, and then state your vote to adjourn. My vote is aye. Dr. Eastman.
Allison Eastman, aye.
Thank you. Dr. Gettings.
Catherine Gettings, aye.
Thank you. Dr. Kidd.
Ken Kidd, aye.
Thank you. Dr. Smith.
Jennifer Smith, I just want to say be safe, be well, wash your hands, and I also vote aye.
Thank you. Dr. Souza.
This is Amanda Sozer. I vote aye, and I just want to give a big applause out to DCJS because you guys did a wonderful job, putting this all together. So, hats off to you all.
They certainly did.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you all for bearing with us and doing our little research on who could do what technology, and we're really glad this was a success. So thanks, everyone.
It worked out well. Thank you all. All right, so we'll see you in person, hopefully, if not virtually, in August. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Ware, just make note that the motion carried.
Oh, excuse me, the motion carried. There were no abstentions. Thank you, Natasha.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
How do I get out of here?
Hang on a second. Hey, Shelly, stay on the line real quick for me.
Yep, you got it. What?
Mute myself. Okay, sorry. That was Pat calling.
Of course it was.
He just wanted to know who would have gotten the notification for the call-in, because he didn't seem to get it and Karen didn't seem to have it. I don't know. Are we still recording? Should we take this offline? Let's.
Hold on.